Before we begin, please be aware that this podcast contains discussion of sensitive topics, such as abuse of minors, of vulnerable adults, and safeguarding practices. Some content may be distressing or triggering for listeners. This program is intended for an adult audience. If you or someone you know is affected by these issues, we encourage you to seek support from a trusted professional or a local support service. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to this 11th episode of Inside Safeguarding, the official podcast of the Pontifical Commission for the Protection of Minors. From Rome, I'm William Roberts from the Commission's communications team. Each month, we bring you a reflective look at the Commission's work, conversations on safeguarding as they evolve, and a deeper insight into the wider challenges facing the Church today. A thread running through much of the Commission's work this month has been the countdown to the third annual report on church policies and procedures for safeguarding, due for publication in October 2026, and the broader preparations for what follows it. In Vallenda, Germany, Commission staff Francisco Papalardo and Agustin Diaz Herrero attended the annual gathering of the Deutsche Ordensoberkonferenz, the German Conference of the Superiors of Religious Orders, where nearly 200 representatives from almost 400 religious institutes came together. The Commission met with the conference leadership to discuss safeguarding initiatives and to confirm the conference's inclusion in the third annual report. The Conference of Religious will be the first to be featured in that report, a milestone that reflects the depth of collaboration between the two institutions. The Commission also renewed its invitation for the conference to take part in the second annual Encounter on Abuse Prevention in Consecrated Life workshop to be held in Rome from the 9th to the 11th of December of this year, for which registration is now open. Titled Called to Communion, Care and Justice, Mutual Relations for a Shared Mission, this three-day gathering will bring together church leaders and safeguarding practitioners from around the world. Designed as a synodal, results-orientated learning space, it will draw on the findings of the third annual report and begin the process of preparations for the fourth, planned for 2027. Registration is now open via the Commission's website, and we invite all our listeners to sign up. The Commission's engagement with Latin America this past month has been particularly active. Father Agustin Jara Podesta, the Commission's regional expert for the Americas, participated in the Continental Seminar for Major Superiors and Congregational Delegates, organized by the Latin American and Caribbean Conference of Religious in Lima. The seminar gathered representatives from 14 countries under the theme Born Again, and served as a space for pastoral renewal and reflection on safeguarding commitments within religious life across the region. Father Agustin presented the Commission's strategic priorities and formation resources, and engaged directly with participants on the practical challenges of implementing safeguarding guidelines at the local level. Separately, 2 online meetings were held with the Latin American and Caribbean Episcopal Council, or CHELAM, as part of the Latin American and Caribbean Network for a Culture of Care. The first brought together CHELAM's Deputy Secretary, the Network's Coordinator, and the Commission's regional experts for the Americas, Susana González Rea, to review the history of the network since its founding in 2022 and explore future possibilities for joint work. A second meeting focused on preparations for the fourth regional meeting of the network to be held in Brasilia from the 1st to the 3rd of September 2026. Both concluded with a renewed commitment to deepen cooperation in support of a culture of care throughout the region. The countdown for the third annual report also reached the Philippines, where the Commission convened bishops, religious leaders, and safeguarding partners for the Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines for a 2-day working visit. The Philippines will feature prominently in this year's report, and discussions were guided by the Instrumentum Laboris, the draft document shaping safeguarding reflection for the process. Topics included formation, resourcing, the accompaniment of victims and survivors, and the cultural dimensions of disclosure and support within Filipino communities. The outcomes of the visit are expected to inform the CBCP's July's plenary assembly and a national safeguarding policy workshop planned for October. And finally, we move to Warsaw, where some 40 representatives from 18 countries gathered for an international meeting of Palatine coordinators of the Apostolate for Children, held under the theme Children, Our Future and Responsibility. Commission member Eva Koch delivered a session titled For a Culture of Care and Protection, in which she argued that safeguarding must be understood as an essential dimension of evangelization, not a procedural add-on. A genuine culture of care, she said, demands more than rules and procedures. It requires a conversion of mentality, a clear commitment to the dignity of every child, and the active, proactive participation of communities, educators, and pastoral leaders. Continental perspectives from Asia, Africa, Latin America, and Europe reinforced a shared conviction. While contexts differ, the mission remains the same. You're listening to Inside Safeguarding. In our next segment, I'll be speaking with Sister Mary Niluka Perera and with Monsignor Robert J. Vitillo. I'm William Roberts. Thank you for joining me. Welcome back to Inside Safeguarding, where I'm joined by my two guests today, Sister Mary Niluka Perera, who's a member of the Commission, and Monsignor Robert J. Vitillo, who's held various senior roles at Caritas Internationalis and the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. Sister Niluka, Monsignor Vitillo, welcome.
Thank you.
Sister Niluka, it's a real pleasure to have you here. Let me start off with a direct question for clarification for our listeners. What is the Catholic Action for Children initiative, and where did it come from?
Thank you. To give a background a bit, today millions of children face crises: abuse, neglect, exploitation, violence, poverty, lack of education, lack of health, and as well as devastating effects of war and natural calamities. So children are at the heart of the church mission. As Jesus said, let the little children come to you, come to me. And when children suffer, Christ suffer in them. Moved by this reality, Pope Francis brought together world leaders and the church actors at the Vatican for the World Leaders Summit on Children's Rights. From that summit came a clear call to action. In response, members of the global Catholic community came together to deepen their commitment, advocate for children in crisis, and promote children's rights and dignity. This is how the From Crisis to Care Catholic Action for Children initiative was born.
Monsignor Vitillo, the initiative followed a year-long process of listening and discernment, culminating in a gathering here in Rome. From your perspective, what emerged most clearly from that process about the realities children are facing today that perhaps the global church had not fully grasped before?
Well, first of all, the major actors in these gatherings that we had both virtually and then in the in-person meeting here in Rome in February came from all parts of the world, all the regions of the world. And they included clergy and religious, men and women, and then lay persons working in different types of services for children, many of them working in terms of family strengthening programs that had originated with some of the larger institutions of the church, but now we're trying to bring children into family settings, both in their own biological families and family alternatives if they could not go back to their biological parents. But also in some of the Caritas organizations and the other social development programs of the church. And in bringing these people together, we all centered our attention and our concern on children. But we also realized that children are truly in crisis today. In addition to the different problems that they face in their own countries, the fact is that so many children are facing deeper crises now because of the long-term conflicts that are going on in the world without any solution. And also the increasing violence in the world, the increasing poverty, despite the fact that we have the Sustainable Development Goals. We've not reached the goals that we've been trying to reach by 2030. And also the fact that that we have less access to education and to healthcare and social services for children. And so we also knew of Pope Francis' initiative in bringing together the Summit on Children's Rights. And we wanted to find now the ways that we could put those commitments into action. And by bringing these people together, we wanted to hear from everyone, to examine the signs of the times that we're facing today, to know and appreciate what's being done at the individual institutional levels, but also to find the ways that we could bring people together to have more clout in the world, to have more influence, to be able to advocate better, to be able to have some cooperation and networking together so that we don't compete or duplicate what others are doing. And then also to do the kind of advocacy that we need to really change the structures of injustice that exist toward children, and to be able to protect children in many different ways.
Thank you. Now, Sister Niluka, participants in this initiative spoke of a poly-crises facing the sustainability of providing care to children and transversal approach to care as a possible response. These are very technical terms. Can you tell us what they actually mean?
We are living through polycrisis. That means children today are not just affected by a single problem, but by multiple overlapping crises that interact and make each other worse. As an example, war, poverty, climate disaster, and economic instability don't happen in isolation. They interforce one another. This makes it harder to provide stable, consistent care for children. A transversal approach is a way of responding that cut across different areas and sectors instead of addressing each crisis separately. It brings together health, education, child protection, family support, community engagement in a coordinated way. The idea is to provide holistic care. Pope Leo, in his address to the participants at the private audience, reminded us to find ways to work together in greater harmony so that children receive care that is well balanced, taking into consideration their physical, psychological, and spiritual well-being.
Monsignor Vitillo, back to you. Catholic institutions are often acting as frontline support while facing shrinking resources. How is this changing the role and expectations placed on Catholic organizations working with vulnerable children?
Well, first of all, we come to see that a great deal of dependence on government funding has taken place in recent years. And in many ways, there was a positive effect of that, especially in terms of dealing with the pandemics, for example, of HIV and AIDS, of tuberculosis, of malaria, through the creation of the Global Fund to fight AIDS, TB, and malaria. Many, many lives have been saved. But now there's been an abrupt cut of funding from the United States government, but also from other governments as well. And we need to find the ways now, how do we continue our services? We will, as a church, do that because the Catholic Church and many faith-based organizations are there before the crises start, during the crises start, and then when everybody else goes away because funding is not available. But we need to also make sure that we could continue to provide the access to medicines and to health care and also social services. Right now, we're struggling to see how we do that. It's impossible to replace billions of dollars with small grants from generous foundations, Catholic foundations for the most part. But how do we do it in a very structured way? And we need also to be able to find a collective way of advocacy with governments, with the multilateral organizations that may be still funding too much on their own bureaucracies and not enough sharing with the people who are most in need. And also then, how do we also educate our Catholics to know that part of their faith commitment is not simply to go to religious services, to Mass every week, but it's also to carry out the graces that we receive at Mass and bring Christ, his gospel, to people every day and as they face the needs in society. And that they also need to find the ways to know that they have to elect leaders who are interested in caring about those most in need.
And what are the key challenges in moving from broad commitments to truly coordinated, effective action on the ground?
Well, first of all, in our meeting, our in-person meeting, and through the different virtual convenings that we've had, we identified 5 major areas that we find that we need to take some collective action on. First, it's united advocacy and a voice for and with children. We need to have children tell us what they need rather than to figure out what we think they need. Also, the networking and collaboration. We do great work as individual institutions, but we don't work well together. And it's important for us to be able to do that, not to replace the funding base of an organization or the charism of a religious order. They all have distinct charisms and they're needed in the world. But when we can work together, then we can find the ways not to replicate services or duplicate services, but to fill in the gaps that are left because we don't have the resources to have each organization do these actions. Also, centering children in the church's mission. Too many times we talk about the children being the future of society rather than being the present of society. And yet in many, many parts of the world, they're almost the majority of society. And so we need to find the ways that we can really bring attention to them and sensitivity to them and also extend leadership to them. We also need to do formation and capacity building. How do we work together better? How do we plan strategically for the actions that we're going to take? How do we monitor and evaluate our actions and improve them and refine them in the future? And then finally, how do we include others in this? And we know that we need to reach out. We can't do this all alone as the Catholic Church. We need to reach out to other faith-based organizations that also do so much to help those most in need. But also then, how do we relate to governments? How do we advocate with them? How do we measure what they're doing and challenge them to do more? And with the multilateral organizations as well. So these are the 5 areas that now we believe we need to begin to develop action plans for each of those areas. And also be inclusive in developing some working groups to focus on one or another or several of these areas. One area is also research. First of all, we need to research what we're doing ourselves and see where the gaps are. But also then we need to inform ourselves much better about what the needs are now and how do we look forward to what the needs will be in the next years to come and how do we respond to them effectively.
Sister Niluka, a final word from you.
Actually, we are hopeful that seeing the readiness and openness of the Catholic stakeholders so far involved in this process and their willingness to work at collaborative ways is strength for this initiative. So in the future, we are trying to explore the functional way to implement this process. So we are very hopeful. And through this initiative, that we can respond collaboratively to the children's needs, children's rights at the grassroots level and regional and international level.
Excellent. Well, Sister Niluka and Monsignor Vitillo, thank you very much for joining us today on Inside Safeguarding and providing these valuable insights. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for giving this opportunity.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you, and thank you especially to the Commission for their interest in this work and for their willingness to partner with us because we share children at the center of our missions, and the more we can do together with the Commission, the more that we can be sure that children are well protected, not only in terms of the policies and the procedures, but also on the ground, in the field, each and every day.
And that brings us to the end of this 11th episode of Inside Safeguarding. Over the course of each month, we'll continue to follow the Commission's work, speak to those engaged in safeguarding on the ground, and take time to reflect on the wider journey towards accountability and change. If you'd like to read more about the topics discussed today or explore the Commission's latest articles and resources in full, you can visit us at tutelaminorum.va. You can also subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube, where future episodes will be published regularly. Thank you for listening and for taking the time to stay connected to these conversations. I'm William Roberts. Until next time.